You're not going to get the amazing things in life by just playing it safe all the time. Sometimes you have to be willing to say, listen, this is, I'm talking about doing a kind of scary thing here, but if we do it right, and here's why I think we can do it right, we're going to leapfrog.
Hi, I'm David, and this is Build to Succeed from Very Good Ventures. Today, we talk with Chris Synan, VP of Engineering at Keller Williams, the largest real estate franchise in the United States. In this episode, Chris talks about not only transforming their code base to Flutter, but transforming their entire engineering culture, overcoming initial skepticism, and ultimately achieving remarkable results. This episode is packed with insights, so let's just get right into it. All right. Hi, Chris. How are you?
I'm great, David. It's great to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. It's been a little while since we caught up. So how's the world of real estate tech been these days?
It's great. It's definitely an exciting field. Over the past couple of years, we've had some really hot times in the industry, and we've had some kind of cooling off. We're kind of looking at interest rates coming down to kind of pick the pace of things back up again. But in the tech world, things haven't slowed down at all. We've taken all this time to continue to sharpen the saw with our processes, with our technologies, and really working on making everything, just kind of continuing to make everything that we've got world class.
Awesome. Well, that's the fun thing about tech, right? No matter what's going on in the markets or anything else, the tech is always there riding along. So
there's always something to do, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a step back and maybe, since we're just getting started here, take a moment. You want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your career journey and how we got to talk today.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. My name's Chris Synan. I am currently Vice President of Engineering at Keller Williams Realty. I joined actually a week before the COVID lockdown happened. So it's been kind of an interesting ride for me. And in addition to that, I came in kind of through the side door. So Gary Keller, who's the founder of Keller Williams, Gary's son, John Keller, had started up kind of an incubation, kind of a technology incubator alongside of Keller Williams. It's called KWX. And they hired me to run technology for KWX. And so I kind of had a unique vantage point on Keller Williams, kind of from that being off to the side, kind of in the orbit of Keller Williams for a while. And then through a series of events, we ended up getting kind of rolled in to KW. Before I go on too much with that, I did want to touch on a couple other things. I wanted to give a bit of a background just on Keller Williams and kind of, what this company is and their tech journey, if that's all right, if I can kind of divert to that for a second. Cool. Thanks. So Keller Williams is the largest real estate franchise by agent count. We have the most agents. It's at current count, it's somewhere around 160,000 agents worldwide. And basically what that means in the United States is that a Keller Williams agent is attached to about 1/5 of every residential transaction that happens. So every house that gets bought and sold, there's about a 20% chance that there's a KW agent involved either on the buyer side or on the seller side. So, we've got just lots and lots of agents out there, just a very, very successful community of agents. And it was, so Keller Williams has seen a lot of growth since Gary started the company in 1983, massive growth for many, many years. And then several years ago, Gary wrote a book called Millionaire Real Estate Agent, what we call MREA. And MREA really kind of catapulted the franchise. People really loved this book because it really lays out there, this is exactly how you can become a millionaire through real estate. It's really step by step. It's really prescriptive, in how you do it. And so many people, I've been to these events. We have 2 big events a year, and you go there and people are really all in on Keller Williams because they got the book, they did what the book said, and now they have a great, they've just built a really successful business. So it's, it's just fantastic. It's just been a game changer, life changer for so many people, right? So then fast forward a little bit to about the 2017 timeframe. Around this time, Gary said, well, look, we've given him this playbook. We've said, here's how you can go and be massively successful with real estate, but they didn't really have the tools to do it. I mean, there's tools out there, but the tools didn't really work the way that the way that, the MREA playbook said to do it. And so Gary said, you know what, we're going to be a technology company. And they said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to invest whatever it takes, massive amounts of money. And we're just going to build out these technologies. So they set about to build what we call Command. Command is our CRM for real estate agents. It takes you through the whole practice from lead generation, contacts, and then when you get into a transaction, it takes you all through that, the financials and everything else, right? So it's kind of an end-to-end real estate practice software. And then in addition to that, we had the consumer-facing experiences such as KW.com, which you can search for homes and you can favorite things, you can create saved searches and all this, and mobile app and things like that, right? So it's great because they just went all in and they said, let's go do this. It's hard to really onboard a ton of engineers to go and do a thing, in short order like this. And so, the good news is we did, the system got built. The bad news is it wasn't always built really optimally. So there was, a certain amount of tech debt and other things. So once we, got the platforms out there was still a lot of work to really get everything kind of fully stabilized. And I guess that's kind of where my journey started with Keller Williams, because when I came in, I was asked to take over all the consumer facing experiences. And, when I got there and took a look at what we had, there was going to be a lot of work to do.
Well, yeah, it sounds so interesting because obviously it's such a complicated business and you have so many customers, but you have the consumers and the agents, right? And I think that's one of the interesting aspects of real estate is you have these complex systems like Command and then the consumer side, and you got to merge those things together. And that tech has become so core to it. I would imagine it was a pretty big transition for them too, moving as that tech got immersed into the world, right? What do you say? 1983, they started the business. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, what a wild shift to go through. Right. And it really great for them to see the importance of technology and investing in those platforms. So yeah, what is the consumer app stack these days? As you came in there and you looked at that, there's some technology debt. There's a few things going on there. What were some of the things you identified as you got into the consumer side of things?
So, there were some things that were done well, and there was some things that really needed some work, right? One of the factors that kind of, that brought me into that space was, I mentioned KWX and, the kind of the incubator accelerator off to the side. We were trying to do a lot of things that really needed to live within KW consumer experiences, right? So we were trying to build code, and then we wanted to get it into, for example, the consumer, the KW mobile app, right? And we were having a lot of trouble doing that. And the reason is because the code base was, it was pretty unwieldy. The word spaghetti has been used, but it was just, we were having a lot of problems. I'd say both with quality of that code base, and then really with, extensibility. It was not modular at all. And, when we tried to put new stuff into that code base, we were just having lots of problems, lots of scaling problems.
These are legacy native apps?
This was, well, no, these were actually, these were React. This was React Native.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, lots of performance issues. I think one metric that I recall is, I think 20% of our sessions on Android ended in crash.
Oof. Yikes.
Yeah, 20%. I think, and also just the pace of delivery was really bad. And I think that's just one of those symptoms as well. When the code is really unwieldy, when people don't really understand what it does, when it's kind of hard to read and it's not well organized, it's hard to build a new thing. I mean, you can go build a new thing, but something else broke, right? And so you're always kind of chasing, these problems. And that's something, that's definitely something that we're having.
Yeah, I think, you're saying 20% crashes. That's a stat that I think people can really understand. They see that and they get it. There's metrics you can show, crash reporting, and generally speaking, your star, reviews in the app stores and stuff. But like that other part that you're identifying is the more insidious like problem, right? Where all of a sudden your business can't move fast enough. You can't ship fast enough.
Yeah.
And I think that's way more costly than having 3 stars instead of 5, in the grand scheme of things. Because how do you even fix it? How do you improve the experience if you're just kind of felt, hung up by what you've got? It can be really difficult.
It was, not only was it, just kind of slow, but it was even, you can't get there from here. Right. It was, we want to put this in, we were being told, build another app. Like, there's no way we're going to get this into that. And I looked at it and I said, what we're trying to do here is not that hard. Right. I mean, we're not trying to really invent, we're not trying to break the laws of physics here. I mean, it's just an app. It just hits a database. It shows some things. Right. And so, when I was put in charge of this, we took a really close look at it. And, I wanted to work with the teams, and I wanted to give people the opportunity to step up and say, okay, I'll take a look. I'll give it a shot. And we did this, a couple different times. Is we took a team and said, go spend the time, do what you got to do, and figure out how we can untangle this app and how we can make this thing work. That team ended up kind of throwing up their hands. So at this point, I'm reaching out to consulting partners, and I'm saying, listen, guys, I need some serious expertise in React Native. I need some people that really, really understand this technology. And I said, I'm willing to pay. Like, I've got some money. You get me somebody that's a committer on the project or something. Like, I need serious expertise. I couldn't find anybody, and so that's where I thought that we were really stuck. I mean, the teams were just basically saying, let's rewrite this thing. And I said, well, I mean, I kind of get that, but there's the old saying about doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, right? I said, how do I know that, because I think part of our problem is the technology, but that wasn't the only problem. I think we had problems with our processes. I think we had problems with just even our own, kind of culture with respect to how we deliver software and our commitment to testing, our commitment to quality, our commitment to automation. There's just a lot of areas that, that we really needed to kind of reconsider and reboot.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I think so many companies are in this situation where, that you have the mobile boom, everybody needs a mobile app, but we all have limited resources and constraints. And, we're trying to move the best we can. And like you said, hire some contractors, you start building up a team. And, we had a chat with Sam Moore at Betterment, and he described it as these like lava layers where you get these new people. There's like a new eruption of work, and this like layer gets built and hardens on top of the old stuff. And before you know it, you guys just got all these layers that you're trying to, but no one knows what's 4 layers down because that was a long time ago. And it's like a lot of rock between you and there. And so it's getting to that point of like, we're right. What is it? The tech? Like, is it React Native? Is that the problem? Well, probably not, because there's other apps that use React Native and probably with some degree of success. And is it the architecture? Is it the team? Is it our process? Is it like, what is it, And then you're hamstrung by, and I'm curious about this, how you were able to navigate that conversation with your leadership of like, hey, I know we spent a bunch of money on this already and we've got this asset, but how do you go about convincing, a team and a leadership group to like, hey, we got to do something different. We got to make a bolder choice. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's definitely one of the biggest challenges with a huge transformation like this. Right. And it really does depend a lot on, your leadership and the culture of the leadership. And it depends on the level of trust in the organization. Because it is a tough sell. I mean, you're saying, look, we just spent a bunch of money to build this. We need to chuck it. Right. That's not, that's not a great story. But I think if you really, take the emotion out of it and just say, look, here's our velocity. Here's the challenge that we have. And here's a hypothesis. The hypothesis is, if we go down a different path, we can achieve a lot different levels of success, and we can achieve, a much higher level of throughput. We can achieve much higher levels of quality, but it's not just, dump it and write a new front end. I mean, there's much more to it. Right. So I think that's part of it too, is because we all, we all want we all want to kind of create stuff and we all want to build stuff that's new. I mean, I get that, but that's really not what this was about. This was about changing kind of everything we do. Like really, this was a piece of that larger puzzle of just utter and complete transformation of the entire way that we operate.
Yeah, so not just tech, but culture and process, and just even like how you think about technology within the organization. Do we just always go to contractors for every little thing, piecemeal, project by project, or do we have a capability, really, right? Something we believe in as an asset to the org.
That was definitely part of it too. Is we said, listen, we have a different staffing strategy, right? Obviously, I'm not going to go replace 200 contractors with 200 full timers, overnight. But here's a strategy that that we can start making progress, kind of bring in-house the really key critical roles, the thought leadership, the decision making, that expertise, and then we can continue to have that balance with flex labor. And I think that's worked really well. But again, that's just another piece of a really holistic strategy that says, we got here, however we got here. That's, no pointing fingers, no blame, doesn't matter. Here we are. And here's the list of things that we really need to go and address and transform. And it's kind of all the things. And so here's how we're going to do this. Here's how we're going to do this. Here's how we're going to do this. So, really, really focused on Agile, brought in some serious Agile practitioners, transformed the way that we worked. All this stuff too is anytime you introduce significant change, there's a certain amount of angst that kind of comes with that, right? A certain amount of anxiety, a certain amount of resistance to change. And that's always got to be part of it too, is how are we going to work with people to get them on board with what we're trying to do here?
Yeah, that's a huge one. Cultural side of it, it's a massive. So you mentioned React Native, that you guys were using React Native and you were looking for help with React Native. I know you from our work with Flutter, so I know ultimately, to just fast forward to that one, that's where you ended up. But how did you, what was the process of evaluating like React Native, Flutter? How did you end up with the choices that you made?
Well, I guess, we're all technologists. We all kind of have the things that we like and that we don't like. And I don't want to get into like a religious battle about it.
Right. Yeah.
But it's going to be hard to not sort of, convey my own stuff a little bit, because for me, I'm a leader of people, I'm a strategist and all these things. But for me, a lot of this stuff is informed by me getting my hands dirty, me spending nights and weekends, beating this stuff up and finding out what I like and what I don't like. I'm not really a front end guy. I'm kind of much more of a kind of a data guy, integration guy, other things. I never really learned any of the frameworks. I basically peaked at jQuery. I never really got into, the views and the Reacts and all these things. Right. So I think, part of it for me was I spent some time in the code base. I was utterly confused. For me, since I'm not a deep React or React Native guy, I didn't want that to weigh too heavily. But I think one of the other things that's really important about leadership is, one is surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you, right? And two is knowing when to really kind of lean on them and knowing when to just, lean very heavily on what their advice is. Right. And so my principal architect at the time says, hey, I've been looking at this and I've been playing around with some different stuff. You should look at Flutter. He said, you should take a look at it. And so I decided, having no background in Dart or Flutter, I just, one weekend, I just popped open the computer and followed a couple of tutorials. And I said, here's what I want to do. We have, with home search, kind of a map view is really, a key part of home search. You say, I want to look in this neighborhood, you get the map view, you see where the houses are. That sort of, digital experience is really critical. Right. And so I said, all right, I've got a Saturday morning all to myself. I'm going to see if I can implement that in Flutter. And so I just went, file new. And by the way, this is before ChatGPT. So this is, this is really, I'm really leaning on the old school, the Stack Overflows and the, the Googles and stuff like this.
Right.
And I had something going in maybe 4 or 5 hours that I really implemented that using our GraphQL, API. I had a kind of a working thing. It wasn't beautiful, but it was working. And I said, ooh, okay, so I like this. And then I said, all right, but what about, some of these challenges that we have? Because I think we really have challenges with automated tests, and things like that. So I said, okay, this Flutter, what does it have? What does it have for different kinds of testing frameworks and things like that? And so I started looking around. I found some things, and one kind of common thread as I'm looking at all these great tools and different open source things in the Flutter community, I kept finding this common thread that kept pointing me back to Very Good Ventures. And I said, oh, this is interesting. And I hadn't heard of VGV at that point. But it just kind of kept popping up, in all this little research that I was doing. And I think maybe what really, the sort of the light bulb moment there, was I had struggled so much to find someone that was just an authoritative expert in React Native that could just say, look, I understand this inside and out. This is not how you do it. You do it this way, right? Because this is my concern. If I let the team go rebuild this, with React Native, but if we don't have that level of expertise, how do I know that we're going to get something that's really great, And I think when I started seeing Very Good Ventures pop up everywhere, I said, maybe this is what I've been looking for. Maybe this is the experts that can say, okay, well, if you're going to build a thing and you want it to be modular and you want it to be expansive, and here's your long range plans is this, and this, here's how you want to build that, right? And that's when I reached out and started talking to your team.
Awesome. I'm so happy that you found that stuff. I mean, we put that stuff out largely because we believed in kind of working in the open, open source. And especially in those days, we felt it was so important not to keep the learnings to ourselves, because so many people are out there, trying to figure this out, and Flutter was new. And so I think that there's some risk in any new thing of people kind of, making those mistakes again. And we were very fortunate to have some really amazing people on our team who had some really great experience working at places like BMW and having like real big production apps and having like pushed hard against a lot of large organizational scale problems. And how do you make this tool work for you? I think because at the end of the day, right? I mean, sort of like one of the things you're describing here is that the tool matters. Like having a good hammer versus a crappy hammer matters if you're building a house. But at the end of the day, the best hammer in the world is not going to hammer the nail well if you don't know how to swing it properly,
Yeah, that's right.
And so I think that there's just some of that stuff around making sure that we're, as a community and as engineers, right, are we doing things that we feel like are scalable and we can believe in? And I also think one of the things that's key, right, is it kind of doesn't, there's a lot of different ways to build stuff. And as long as how you're doing it is a good way and it's scalable, the key is to stick with it, to have an opinion, right? And to believe in it and know, yeah, maybe there's some other way, but like this way works for us and it's kind of good enough. You know what I mean? And we prove it again and again that it's going to be scalable. And so I think that's been something that's been really cool. And even as Flutter's grown, we've seen a little bit of regression of that, right? Where there's more different ways and people have a lot of opinions, and it's like, hey, your mileage may vary. You pick the things that you want to do, but just stick with it, whatever it is,
Yeah.
So that was our goal there. And I'm glad that that was helpful to you guys.
Yeah, it was awesome. And, there was another element that I kind of found, bouncing around my head just in terms of decision-making criteria. At the time, React Native had a really, really big third-party libraries, right? Tons and tons of different things, to the point where it was almost too much, right? Like there's almost too many ways to do a thing, and it wasn't clear, like this is the good path, because you could just go all over the place and end up with kind of a real hodgepodge, right? And so one of the things that I really started to like about Flutter and working with Very Good Ventures was it was like, there's some choices, but this is the one for you. I mean, to the point that you're just making, is it always going to be the best thing in the world for everybody? I don't know, but you know what? Put it in there. It serves the purpose. It's something you can build on. It's something that can, grow with you and your team and with the app. And you don't get sort of lost in analysis paralysis,
Yeah.
So I think there was just a lot of factors like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Was there so this, you found us, you found some of those materials, and you had some documentation and some directions, and you experimented on the weekend, kind of got that confidence in it. Were those all things that you then brought back to your team and the organization around getting that confidence internally to not repeat the past mistakes? I would imagine, your leadership probably was aware of a problem, but now I guess I've always been curious about how, as a leader within your organization, or as a technical leader, how do you convince the rest of the organization that what we're going to do next is actually going to be better? Because there's a lot of hesitation.
Yeah.
I think people have been burned in the past, right? You get this, like you said before, you get the same mistakes again. How did you translate your learnings and your findings into confidence building for your leadership and the rest of the team?
Yeah, that's a great question. It is. It's kind of about managing and balancing risks, right? And there's a little bit of kind of knowns and unknowns, right? I mean, we have this app. We know about how long it takes to do things. We know about what our measures of quality are for it, and it's not very good. And so there's risk there. There's risk in continuing down that path, and it is kind of a known risk, because I don't think magically it's going to organize itself and be, and sort of all of a sudden have a great and really sound architecture. It's going to be what it is, and we're going to kind of keep, packing different layers around it. That's just kind of covering up some of the core problems, right? And then you contrast that with, this is a different kind of risk, but look at what we've done. So, we did. And a couple of the other things that we did, I think you guys were kind enough to come in and do a couple of lunch and learns, give us a couple of kind of training sessions, even before we kind of really kicked off. I challenged the team with doing a couple of little mini proof of concepts of their own, and offered some other different kinds of training as well. So there are a few different things that we were doing to kind of start to kind of bring up that confidence with the team. And then there was another element of it, which is that from a product and design perspective, we were kind of also going through a big overhaul. So we were really trying to take, and in this way, it was, the timing I think was pretty good. It's because, the business wasn't saying, hey, what we have there is great, don't mess with it. They're actually saying, we want to go this whole new direction. We want to do all this really ambitious stuff too. And kind of stylistically, and from kind of a branding perspective, we want to go a whole new direction also. And that helped that there was that appetite for change coming from that side as well. And I think I was able to kind of tap into some of that and say, well, listen, here's what it's going to take to go back and, get this crufty thing to kind of look and act and behave the way you want it to. And here's what it would take to just start with something new. But part of it too was, I'm trying to explain, there were kind of a lot of elements to making this good case, right? Obviously. And I guess I can't underestimate or understate how important leadership and trust is in all that, right? And the culture that we have, my boss, Chris Cox, is just an unbelievable leader. And, he's a servant leader. He's absolutely trusts the group that, he trusts me and he trusts all of his leaders. I think that's a big part of it as well. But we were able to go back and just say, look, here's what we've been able to do in a pretty short time, based on what you guys want to do and where you want to go with this product. I really think we're going to be faster, even kind of abandoning this old platform and starting with almost nothing. We're going to be faster, but wait, there's more. We're not really starting with nothing, because Very Good Ventures, one, they're going to come in and help us. And two, they have this entire framework. Very Good Start. Was it Very Good Start?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You have this whole Very Good Start thing that basically gives us a lot of that sort of bootstrap stuff that we need for our app to really get us up and running. And so when we looked at the capabilities of Very Good Start and we said, it's going to give us all this stuff, that's going to leapfrog us, 2 or 3 months, maybe, just in terms of stuff that we would have to kind of go figure out how to build. We're going to get all that stuff for free. So, holistically, when you looked at all this stuff together, it started to get pretty compelling. And there was one other element too that kind of felt like a bit of a gamble at the time, but it just sounded so compelling that I kind of had to try. And that is, it's kind of a given that with Flutter, you're going to get iOS and you're going to get Android. But I think we were just really kind of intrigued by the possibility of getting web experiences too. And so we kind of made that part of the business case, and we kind of took that gamble a little bit, and it's been really good for us. It's really worked out well. I mean, obviously there's some caveats on when you want to use it and when you don't want to use it, but for what we wanted to do, it's worked really well. And we've got, experiences that are in the iOS and in the Android, and they're on web, and it's the same code base. And that's cool.
Yeah. And that's the promise. That's the allure that I think a lot of these frameworks are promising. And I don't know that everybody gets there. And you guys were pretty early, I think, in the broader ecosystem of a company really investing heavily in that true multi-platform. Because I think, Flutter early on called itself multi-platformed as a way to distinguish from cross-platform. Cross-platform, you get one code base, iOS and Android. That's a React Native or Xamarin type approach.
Yeah,
multi-platform, but it's kind of hard because not that many people are launching desktop apps these days, or some sort of embedded IoT experience or something. So the web has kind of been this holy grail, and it's been super cool to see you guys go down that path. And with something so critical is like mapping those map pins and where those listings are. I mean, that's a critical part of the experience, and really streamline that developer process to get one code base,
Yeah.
And has it changed? Like, I have to feel like it's probably changed your ability to maintain that in terms of portability of engineers, because now you can just have a single engineer who can work on any of those platforms, right? You don't have to just go talk to the web team, talk to the mobile team, get them, make sure they're doing the same thing, right?
Yeah. That's exactly what it was before, is kind of, mobile's outpacing web, web's outpacing mobile, and you're starting to get a different experience. So now we've got the one team that's producing all that stuff, and it freed up other people to go do, other cool stuff. But it's been great. And I think in the beginning, I think we're all a little bit wary about it. And, now looking back, there'll be a story, and the first reaction from the team is, oh, well, this is perfect for Flutter. We can build in Flutter. We can put it on the web. We can put it, at one point it was, come on guys, try this. And now that's where they want to go first.
Awesome.
And it's been really cool.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask next is, when you pick some of these new choices, you make a big decision like this, a big transformation. There's a lot of promise. There's a lot of selling points, marketing talk around all these great values you're going to get, right? And so my question is, now that you've got some time behind you and you kind of brought the team along, what kind of improvements or outcomes have you seen as a result of this? Like, were you able to really convert over to the new thing where some of those old problems aren't recreated? I mean, how are you guys doing now?
Yeah, I think we have. And I think the one that I just remain so proud of, and so proud of the team and so proud of the leaders for really sticking to this commitment, is the level of test coverage that we have. I mean, that was one of those sort of reboot things that we really had to do. It was, it's easy to get caught up with deadlines and just kind of skimp on the tests. And it takes a lot of discipline to say, you don't check that in unless there's, code coverage. And then I think there's also a little bit of a struggle there with meaningful tests and, not as meaningful tests, right? So we just decided that we're going to do this, and we're going to commit to 100% test coverage. And that's just going to be, part of our culture going forward. And we've maintained that, and we've really been able to do that. So, right now we are, I think we are 4 tests shy of 3,500 tests for our app as of the last sprint. So 3,496 tests. And that's pretty great. Before it was in really bad shape. Here's the other thing that we've gotten. And again, I mean, Flutter's been a really important part of this. There's been a lot more kind of larger transformations also that have supported this. Our CI/CD practice, the level of automated tests, the way that we've got those wired in, really full on agile adoption, et cetera. But if I rewind to when we first got here, we were lucky to do one, maybe two releases in a quarter. And they were ugly. They were ugly. Like, it would take 3 weeks to get it out the door, and then it would take about another 3 weeks to stabilize the mess that we'd made in production. It was just so bad. And, a big part of this transformation, now we're in a much different story. Now we release every single week. We do a release. Currently we're alternating web and mobile every other week, but we're so good at this point, we could do whatever. In fact, we've gotten it so dialed in that we could do an individual feature change. A developer checks that in, a product manager clicks release in Jira, and it gets released.
Wow.
So we've just really, really transformed in so many ways. Yeah, it's been fantastic.
I think what you just described to someone who maybe hasn't been through the build train experience, or that pain you were feeling of like, 1, 2, maybe 3 releases a quarter, and then all of a sudden you're able to eat, whether you want to or not, the ability to ship by the click of a button, and the confidence in that you're going to be able to release that rapidly is such a massive like shift. I think it's hard for people who haven't been through and seen that. It's hard to really truly comprehend the impact that has on the business. Because now you guys can, I would imagine, like next week, if somebody comes and they're like, hey, I got an idea, right? Or there's a thing we need to adjust or change, or new thing we're trying to roll out. And, you guys have the confidence now that you can do it, right? It's not going to be okay, hold on. Well, 6 months from now, maybe we'll get it out, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, our predictability now is like, we've really got it dialed in. We're doing kind of like data science around our throughput, and it's really pretty amazing. In fact, this one like just blew me away. We had this, kind of a leadership meeting. And my counterparts in the business side basically came to us and said, we need you guys to slow down all the releases. And that just killed me. I'm like, wow, that feels so good. That's such an awesome
mission accomplished,
right?
Man.
I mean, like, we can do this. It's fine. We got feature flags. We can do this. But wow, what a transformation, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, and think about how many businesses out there, probably where you guys were when you started, right? Where the technology isn't seen as this like growth platform. It's seen as this sort of like difficult thing you have to manage, right? Like this like difficult impediment to realizing your product vision. Because you got to like document it. You got to get it into the developers. They got to wrangle a bunch of stuff, and then you got to test it. You get it out there, and it's kind of always painful, right? And, one thing I've always thought about relative to our industry is this thing like where it's just a common thing where people say like, well, I just always expect everything's going to take twice as long and cost twice as much. And like, what a horrible like reputation for our industry, But I think a lot of that's just because of the systems we built up, the technology debt you establish. And some of this stuff, like, we're talking about some companies are enormous. They've got 30, 40 years of technology they built or something. And I get it. It's complicated, but when you get to that clear air where someone can have an idea and the business believes in the team to execute quickly, that's a massive competitive advantage compared to other companies that maybe don't have that.
Yeah, it is. It is. And, David, looking back on it, I think there's just some important elements of that, because I think it really does depend on a certain kind of culture, right? So for example, I mean, the ability to have a difficult conversation, like, listen, just saying go faster is not really very helpful, right? Like, what I'm saying is, sometimes to go faster, you have to start by going slower. You have to start by discipline. You have to put in this investment. I actually have to work less on the shiny features and a little more on getting our act together, right? And so there is a large amount of trust involved in that for me to go back to my business partners and say, listen to me, I know that you want all these things, but I need you to trust me. If you give us some time and let us go kind of clean our house, then we can come back, and then we're going to be ready to rock and roll. Then we're going to be moving fast, right? And so having that level of trust is really critical, because if you don't have that, I don't think we could have done this transformation with this team if I didn't have that level of trust and didn't have that level of partnership that says, trust me, this is going to look kind of scary for a minute as we just rip this thing apart. It's going to look scary, but you got to trust me on the other side. You're going to go, wow, that was worth it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that. And I think that, not every place that I've ever worked, not every culture that I've been in would would necessarily have been one where that could work. I'd love to say, hey, parachute me in anywhere and I can work magic. I don't know. I mean, I think that really that sort of culture and that level of trust with the leadership team is so critical. It's such a critical piece. And then, I think the extension of that is you have to cascade that down among the team as well, right? Because I think what the teams get locked into is, this is the way we do it, and I've managed to kind of keep this job for a while, so just let me just kind of continue to do this. And you really have to help them kind of break out of that shell and just break out of that very sort of fixed mentality. And so we kept challenging the team and saying, guys, are you happy with this, or do you think we could do better? And they would say, yeah, we could do better. Because the teams they know every day they fight against some dumb thing and they go, I wish that was better. And so I said, make the list and I've got your back. We're going to go figure these things out. We're going to line them up and we're going to knock them down and we're going to go figure this stuff out. But it was just an extension of that same, sort of, trust, right? It's basically an extension of that says, you guys, I'm going to give you the runway. I'm going to give you the air cover to go figure this stuff out and to go solve these things. Okay. And eventually they come around and they say, okay, I'm in, let's go do this. Right. And that was a big part of that whole mindset shift that had to happen with the team to get everybody to do this.
That's amazing. The question is, are you hiring? I would imagine there's probably a lot of engineers who would be listening to this and be like, wow, how do I become part of that culture? Right. And because we talk about technology so much and the choices. And even before, when we were kind of talking about, React Native or Flutter or Native. And I think so many people get caught up in that flame war of the actual tools. Yeah. And the reality of it is that the tools, they matter, of course, but not really, because what matters is these sort of softer things you're describing, that leadership culture, right? That trust in you and the ability to stick with it. When you make that choice, the other thing that I'm going to trust you, but only for 1 month. After 1 month, if it's not working out, I'm going to pull the plug on this. And then that could be really damaging too, right? And then how you even approach this, like in our conversations, this obviously isn't the first time we've talked. And one of the things I always thought was just really cool about how you guys approach this was really embracing this as like, okay, we got to make a product change, some design changes, some overall things we're trying to do differently with the product itself. We're going to make these technology changes, but along the way, this is a very unique opportunity for us to reset our culture and to establish a way of behaving, working, supporting each other and collaborating, and that trust that really takes that leadership culture all the way through the team. And it sounds like, that's really changed how you guys operate and has just created so much trust and confidence, not just with the leadership, but like in the whole team, which is just an incredible outcome.
Yeah, it has. And it's also, it's one of the real joys of leadership is, you believe in people and, you tell them, I believe in you. I think you're a superstar. I want to give you everything you need. I mean, my job is kind of to get out of your way, remove roadblocks, and just have your back. Right. And to see people kind of rise to that challenge, and people that in the beginning were, maybe a little suspicious, or they weren't really on board, they weren't really engaged, whatever the case. And then to look, throughout this journey, and just to see the way that the team has believed in them, and that the way that they've kind of come back around and kind of found their role and found their niche, and then are really sort of showing up as leaders. And it's just been such an amazing thing. I mean, the technology we've built is awesome, but to really see people develop as professionals and to kind of take that chance and put themselves out there and just try to, speak up and try to have more, impact and more influence, and, just get more done. And it's just been great. It's just fantastic.
So thank you, Chris. This has been so amazing, and you're such an inspiring guy, and got a great story here, and it's such an amazing outcome. And like, just kudos to you and to Keller Williams for having the confidence and leadership to kind of to do that and to make that change, not only for the product, but like for the people. Like you're saying, it sounds like you made an incredible team where people are empowered and feeling good. Now that you're in this moment, right, and you kind of have had some of these changes and transformations, like what does the future look like for you guys? Like how has it kind of cleared the skies for you as you look ahead? And fundamentally, how do you think it's changed sort of the confidence of the business or what the future holds?
So I think we've got kind of various pieces of technology in the organization, and partly because consumer was a little bit insular, right? And also because it's not the largest, code base or platform that we have. There's much bigger, platforms. But I think one of the things that's afforded us a little bit is that flexibility to get creative and try new things. And so one of the things, almost kind of like an incubator of sorts within the larger organization, right? And so there's other things that we've said, well, let's try this, or let's take this different approach. And where we've had success with that, we now have other areas within the organization that are looking over, going, "Hey, that looks pretty cool. What you guys doing over there?" Right? And so I think that's the phase we're in right now. And that's not to say we're the smartest people in the world and we invent everything. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, we've certainly leveraged a lot of great stuff from the other teams, and that's how kind of a good culture works. But we did sort of, in a few cases, just sort of throw out the old and adopt a new thing. And in some cases, that's starting to catch on. So that's part of the process, that we're doing right now. And then just, as the market continues to kind of evolve and interesting things are happening there, I think where a couple of years ago, the business would have all this really entrepreneurial, really innovative ideas. And we were kind of saying, hang on. We gotta do some cleanup here. Now we're saying, bring it. Like, we're ready, bring it on. So, that's really sort of the turning point that we've had recently. And that's exciting because I want to move that fast. I want to go do all these amazing things. And it's frustrating when you're just kind of cleaning your house and trying to get all ready. But I mean, now we're ready, now we're, opening the doors, we're open for business. Let's go. Let's make this happen.
That's amazing. And that's what every tech leader wants, because you want more, right? You want more budget, more teammates, more opportunities. And that comes from when the business has confidence that you're going to be able to deliver the bold ambitions and the fast moving ideas that come with it. So
that's right.
That's amazing. Well, let's wrap it up. I mean, I guess one sort of final question maybe is, as you think about, where you were a couple years ago, or earlier in your career, or if there's some other company out there who's maybe finding themselves in a similar position, right? Where you got tech debt, you ship slowly. There's a lot of frustration maybe by the business leadership. What advice would you give to them in terms of how to get started on something like this? Like how to get from that 0 to 1, get out of the inertia that maybe is holding you back and take a leap?
Yeah. That's a big question. And I think I kind of have to come back to, trust. I think that trust is such a big part of it. Because I think, I think you have to get a very clear picture of where you're at, right? There's no software out there that doesn't have bugs, right? All the software has some issues, right? So what are your sort of business challenges? Is it just that things are slow? Is it that is it that the quality's poor? I think you really have to kind of get that assessment of what's working and what's not. And the team culture and the communications, there's so much, we didn't even really touch on this, but there's so much that we've done, also just around communications, around transparency, around kind of interdepartmental, dependencies and how you communicate those and how you plan for those. There's a lot of things, there's a lot of things to it, but I think so much really has to start from the leadership team. And so the commitment to excellence really has to start there. And really the willingness to kind of take a chance, the willingness to do a scary thing. I mean, you're not going to get the amazing things in life by just playing it safe all the time. Sometimes you have to be willing to say, listen, this is, I'm talking about doing a kind of scary thing here, but if we do it right, and here's why I think we can do it right, we're going to leapfrog. And we're going to be way, 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 way ahead. But it does take a lot of trust. It takes a lot of clear communication. It takes a lot of demonstration that you've done the diligence, that you've got a plan, and that this is something that's going to work. It's not a crazy long shot. It's a very, very well considered plan.
Wow. Well said. Well, thank you very much, Chris. Incredible story. You're an incredible guy, and I appreciate you spending some time with us to tell this story and tell about Keller Williams. So is there any place people could go to learn more? Just kw.com, or where else should they go to learn more about your team?
Yeah, kw.com. Go check us out. It's we've got the 2-letter domain, which is pretty cool these days, a 2letter.com domain. But yeah, there's information there about about our development team, about our technology. We've got a Dev Hub portal where innovators can come in and hook into our systems and do all sorts of really awesome, innovative things. So definitely come check us out, kw.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. Appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, David. It was really great to talk to you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for joining us on Build to Succeed, a Very Good Ventures podcast. We hope you enjoy exploring the experiences and insights of leaders that have built successful digital products. Please take a moment to leave us a review, and don't forget to subscribe to get our latest episodes. Thanks again, and see you next time.